3-day weekend, long weekend, going back to work tomorrow. Gonna be tough. That's okay. There's pinball to talk about. We're gonna go deep into a certain year in the 90s. Lots of games. Coast to Coast Pinball, episode 22. Thanks for being here. Let's go. This is Coast to Coast Pinball. My name is Nate Shivers. This is a podcast, it's commentary, and I'm a man out of quarters. I was literally out of quarters again yesterday. Teresa and I tried to go to the beach. We just jumped in the car, took a couple towels, gonna go play in the water. We live like a mile from the beach. Drove over to Torrey Pines State Park, parked on the side of the road, went up to the meter. They didn't take credit cards at these parking meters, which I just couldn't believe. Didn't have any change. I spent all that on pinball. Didn't have any dollar bills even. Pretty bad. So we parked somewhere else. Walked, played in the water. Hope you guys had a good Labor Day weekend. I'm sure some of you had to work, and for that I appreciate you, as they say somewhere in this country. So what's going on? Episode 22. We're going to do like a two-part episode here. We're going to do two segments, one being the mailbag, which will be the second half of the show, because I've got to get through some of these emails, and we'll get to the first part here in a second. So I sold Party Zone finally. I've been threatening it for a while. Captain Bizarre has been on the chopping block. He needed to go. It was time for a change. My office really can only support 2 games comfortably. I can fit 3. I've had 3 in here for a little while. I could fit 4. It'd be a tight fit. I could do it. Could put 1 in the living room, thinking about that. But 2 is sort of the perfect number in our condo. And now I'm left with my Twilight Zone, which I love. And I'm left with my newish, to me, Judge Dredd, which I can't say that I'm in love with. I'm having a bit of a tough time really connecting to Judge Dredd. It's a theme that I've always kind of liked the artwork package for, because it is original art. They didn't use the movie. They used the comic book. It's a wide body. I love wide body games. There's lots of shots on the game. It's not a problem. It plays fairly good. It could use a little dialing in here and there. I put a bunch of LEDs in it, so it pops. I mean, it's fun to look at. It looks, cool and fancy and shiny. It's fast. It's really fast. But why am I not in love with this game? I don't know. I think maybe I'm seeing why this game has not really jumped up into that mid $2,000 price point yet, where, for a Williams wide body game, you could see that happening. I could see all these games jumping up in that, but a Bally Williams game, wide body, cool art, the theme, maybe the theme's a turnoff to some. It's not a turnoff to me, but it hasn't really broken through into that $2,500, $2,600, $2,700 range. It's still, you can get this game for $2,000 if you look around, or less. And I think maybe I'm finding out why. It doesn't have a lot of intrinsical, intimacy for the player. It's a little bit of a cold theme. There's something about Twilight Zone where I feel like I'm in a meeting with that game. It's a meeting of the minds, me versus that game every time I hit start. I'm playing it, and it's talking to me, and we're going through it. Whereas Judge Dredd, I don't know, man. I almost feel bad that I don't like it more. Has that ever happened to you? Have you ever bought a game and got it home, and it's a game you wanted? This game was on my list. This was a game of the games that I knew I could afford and was willing to afford. This was like top 5 for me. So I'm a little bit bummed. I don't know. I don't know what I'm going to do here. Open to trades. So, I don't know. But like I said, Party Zone had to go. Party Zone is no longer with us. I put Party Zone up on Craigslist at a very fair price. By the time I had taken into account what I paid for it originally, the LEDs that I'd put into that game, I put it up for a bit less than all the money I had into it. Because I kind of knew what it was going for. And I wanted to sell it quickly. I didn't want to deal with anything. So I put it up for a price, and I put the word firm in there. And that's how I like to sell stuff. I like to find a price that I can live with, put the word firm, and then you either are going to come and buy the game or you're not. I don't really want to have a bunch of people in my house haggling me all day long. Now, I'm kind of the opposite. I say that, but I'm not. I do appreciate a firm price if it's a fair price. I've seen some firm prices recently in California that are stupid. $3,000 for, a Terminator 2. I'm sorry, that's dumb. But I like to buy that way where I don't have to worry about the haggle. But, if somebody puts a price that's sort of medium high and says we're best offer, or I just get a vibe that they're looking for offers, I'm okay with that. I can deal with that. But I love to sell a game just with a price. Like, this is it. And I had a guy call me from up in Los Angeles. And he called me and he had that tone in his voice, like he was excited. And he said, "Do you still have the game?" I said, "Yeah, I still have it." He goes, "Okay, I want to buy it." I said, "Okay, it's all yours. Just come and get it." And this was last night at like 6 o'clock. I said, "When do you want to come by? I'll be here every evening this week." And he said, "What about tonight?" I said, "Yeah, man, I like the way you think." And he asked if I could help him load it, which I said, "Sure, no problem." And he was down here, got here late. I think he got here like 10:30 at night. I just feel like I'm always moving pinball machines in and out of this place late at night. My neighbors must think I'm nuts. And he said, "This is your price, right?" I said, "Yeah, that's my price." And done. We had a done deal. He got here. I played it for him. I showed him. And I tell you, I'm more than honest when I sell a game. I will tell you every little thing that I think might even possibly be wrong with the game, because I don't want you calling me back in 2 weeks saying, "Hey, man, the dancing dummy doesn't really, dance a whole lot." No, man, I told you. Dancing dummy takes a while to come on. Dancing dummy needs a coil redo. So I laid it all out to him. And I've talked about this game on my podcast before here. Had some playfield issues. Somebody had done a number on 2 or 3 spots on the playfield where I think they took some sort of abrasive chemical and tried to clean the playfield, and they just wore right through the paint. So there were some really rough spots. Other than that, the game was in really good shape. The Captain Bizarre head turned like it should. The dancing dummy did eventually come on when you got the bop till you drop thing going. The robotic comic was working. It's not bad. Shallow game, and I can't keep shallow games around in this small collection I have. And I've been thinking a lot about the small collection thing. Twilight Zone's not going anywhere. I'll probably have that game till I stop caring about pinball, which probably won't happen. So that means I'm always going to have 1 or 2 spots for other games. And that's not to say I wouldn't buy something that was a deal and put it in the garage in space I don't have, or maybe at a friend's house. But basically, in my place right now, I got space for 2, 3 maybe. So when you have a small collection, do you want games that sort of complement each other? Do you want different style games? Do you just want deep games so that you don't get bored? I'm not sure. I don't know what the answer is. I thought I wanted a Doctor Who. I played a lot of Doctor Who out on the road traveling, and I almost talked myself out of a Doctor Who. I think I'd get bored of that game. I love the theme. I love the sort of weird... Playfield's almost like an EM in some ways, because there's this giant bank of targets on one side and not a lot of stuff going on other than this crazy 3-story time expander thing, which is nothing like an EM, so I don't know where I'm going with that. But it just has a unique layout and feel. But I think I might get bored of that here at home. So I'm thinking about that a lot. Speaking of EMs, a game came up locally here on Craigslist, not too far away from me. Far enough away to be safe right now, though. A 1972 ballad game called Space Time, which I think is a beautiful game. It has really neat artwork, and I've only played it maybe 1 or 2 times. Like, I've only ever pressed start on this game 1 or 2 times out in the wild, so I'm not super comfortable enough, but it's at a price where I think I should just go buy it. I've really been thinking about that a lot today. So it's kind of what's going on with me. Teresa and I went and played some pinball this weekend. We went to the Pizza Port in Solana Beach. The Pizza Port's like a local chain of pizza places out here, and they have a Twilight Zone at the Pizza Port in Carlsbad, California. Pretty nice Twilight Zone up there. But we went to the Pizza Port here in Solana Beach, right by where we live, and they have last time we were there, we played Pirates of the Caribbean, and Scared Stiff was out of order. Well, this time we went specifically to play Scared Stiff, because she had never played Scared Stiff, and I knew she'd like that game. And Pirates of the Caribbean was out of order. So we put $8 into Scared Stiff and played for almost an hour. We had a blast playing Scared Stiff together. She kicked my butt. I mean, she beat me into the ground. And I had just played Scared Stiff a bunch in Jersey and did very well on it. And was often lighting 5 of the 6 modes and just not quite getting that coffin mode going. But Teresa, man, she just zeroed in on that crate and just shot that crate shot over and over and kept getting multi-ball and just racked up huge scores. And here I am trying to, lock the balls and, get the lab going and the pop bumpers and do all these things to kind of progress through the game. And I'm getting run over score-wise. So it was pretty fun to see. She really liked that game. Unfortunately, that game is another one where the price has jumped on it a lot because the theme is awesome. It has a great progression in the gameplay. And I don't know. I don't know if I can spend $5,000 on that game. I don't know if that's a $5,000 game to me. Maybe. I like it a lot, though. She had a lot of fun. So I posted a photo of her playing up on the website at coast2coastpinball.com. So if you want to check that out. I noticed when I post photos of Teresa on the website, the traffic spikes up. I don't know what you're all trying to tell me there. Maybe I do know exactly what you're all trying to tell me there. So anyway, without further ado, we got stuff to talk about. So we're going to jump right into this first segment that I like to call...
And the year was...
And the year was 1995. And this is going to be part 1. Because this is one of those years that I've sort of been avoiding a little bit, where there's a lot of games and a lot to talk about. And I chose 1995 because as I went through the years and sort of looked at the game selections and looked at what came out, 1995 may be one of the most interesting years of the DMD era for pinball design and games, and just the sort of shots that were coming out on games and features that were coming out. And I especially liked reading about the marketing material that was behind all of these, because remember, in the history of pinball up until kind of now, games have generally been marketed to operators who are going to put these games out for the public to put money in. So it's pretty interesting seeing what they pitched towards these operators as the selling points and why this game will make you money. So 1995, we had lots of people making... Well, we didn't have lots of people. I shouldn't say that we had lots of people. We had a fair amount of people. We had the Bally Williams Corporation, Midway Bally Williams. That was all going. We had Sega. Sega had, out of the ashes of Data East. And we had Gottlieb. Gottlieb was still building games. Those are the main players when we go and look back at 1995. And in part 1, that covers everything. So let's go to January 1995. And the first game that was released for us in that year was from Sega. In fact, Sega had the first 2 releases of 1995. And this was in January. And it was a movie theme, go figure for a Sega machine, right? Mary Shelley's Frankenstein. Mary Shelley's Frankenstein. Interesting game. When you walk up on this game, if you haven't seen one in person, it's very robust in the artwork package. There's a lot coming at you. And it's a Paul Ferris artwork package. And we talked about Paul Ferris doing the design from Hook, and if you know that, you would look at this, and it's very, very similar in just the style of the Mary Shelley's Frankenstein art package. You get the Frankenstein's monster everywhere. Now, when you look at the playfield, one of the first things you will notice is the actual Frankenstein's monster toy that is sticking up out of the middle back of the playfield. And that was a pretty cool toy for the time. The arms move around, and I think that those arms have given some people some problems over the years. This game was also one of those Sega games with the larger DMD display. So they were kind of doing things their own way. This game has held up fairly well over time, and I think it's actually sort of a sleeper game for some that's probably on the rise. And it is currently ranked number 93. So it is a top 100 game on the Pinside Top 100. They only made about 3,000 of them, and that's an estimated number, but I think that's pretty well decided upon as being accurate. So John Borg designed this game. So I think that's probably also, why the popularity persists, just the name of the designer, as we've talked a little bit about. If you played this ball, you'll notice that there is a lot going on both in the artwork and the layout. And there's some tight shots in the game. You get a 6-ball multi-ball in this game, which is pretty rare. There's not a lot of 6-ball multi-balls out there. Right when you start playing, one of the first things that you'll notice is you get to choose what music's going to play during it. And your 2 choices are sort of the theme. Maybe it's the theme from the movie, Mary Shelley's Frankenstein, or the Edgar Winter, classic rock Edgar Winter rock and roll song, Frankenstein. So choose that one, of course. Busy playfield. What else would I say about this game? I would say that the cabinet art package is actually very beautiful. I really like it. Not a game that that I would go out of my way to try and own, I don't think. I think this one gets a little inflated. I've seen some sell for a lot of money because it is a little more of a low production number for this era. But it is a Sega, so that should keep the price down somewhat. I think you get into this game in the $1,500 to $2,000 range, you're probably in good shape. And it's a pretty game. In a larger collection would fit nicely. And not a bad integration. I don't remember this movie very well. I would need to go back and really look at the movie to kind of check all the integration as far as the theme into the game. But I believe it's pretty close, because if you look at the artwork and the way they drew the artwork on the game, it looks like what I remember the movie to have looked like. So, real dark, kind of horror theme, classic horror theme though. So very cool. So that was January in Mary Shelley's Frankenstein. Next up in February was another Sega release, and another game with a big DMD in it. And, a drastically different art package. And this was Baywatch. And Baywatch, if we were doing a little going up, going down segment, Baywatch is going up. People are falling in love with Baywatch. It's like Baywatch and roller games are the two. We talked about roller games in a previous episode. That they're sort of kitschy themes, bad themes, cheesy themes, that I think the gameplay is sort of going beyond the theme now, and people are starting to realize that there was some great design in this game. I've seen a lot of people say that this is their favorite Sega designed game ever released. People who have this game love this game. I don't have production numbers. I looked everywhere. I think it's fairly low production numbers. This would be one of those bang for your buck pins, I think, if you could get this game at a good price, because there's a lot going on. There's a water skiing video mode in this. I think about that. Looking at the flyers that were distributed for this game originally when they were selling it to operators, one of the funny things that I found on it that they were promoting as a selling point was self-cleaning pop bumper switches. So I guess somehow the pop bumpers didn't need to be cleaned, or they cleaned themselves. It was sort of like a maintenance thing. So you could see there were things they were trying to like pitch towards operators, like, hey, buy this game instead of whatever Williams is doing, because you won't have to clean your pop bumpers. It's one thought, I guess. The main toy on this game in the back left, and we talk about toys are often in the back left, and do we all know why that is? Because you're shooting, most of us are right-handed, and you're shooting at the right flipper to the back far left. Makes sense? Blew my mind when somebody told me that. I'm like, oh, you're right. That's very true. So it's a lifeguard tower, and that's where the ball locks happen, and that's where the multi-ball will start out of the lifeguard tower. And it's a fairly complex machine. There's 4 flippers. There's a little mini flipper, lower right side, kind of lower middle right side, which is actually has a shark fin shape on top of it. And I believe, if I'm correct, and I hope I'm not wrong in this because I'll get the emails, I believe that this flipper can be controlled by the game when certain things are going on. Have not spent a lot of time on Baywatch, maybe only twice ever, but kind of like the Addams Family, the thing flips type deal. This game has that too, and I believe it's the shark fin flip. So, one other thing to note about this is Sega was introducing 6-player games at the time, and this was a 6-player game. So I don't know, it's kind of an oddball thing. Pretty awful back glass. It's pretty bad. You get the Hoff, you get Pamela Anderson, and it's drawings of them. I might almost rather have photographs at this point of these guys, but Baywatch is currently ranked on the Pinside Top 100 outside the 100. It's number 134, and I think that's pretty good for a Sega game with a theme that's kind of bad. I think that speaks to how well this game is liked by the people who actually spend the time to play it and learn the rules and go for it. So, kudos to Sega on Baywatch. Also in February, Gottlieb, and I know you're all waiting for this. I know there's guys listening to this podcast going, oh, I can't wait till he gets to the other February game, because you know what it is, right? It's Gottlieb masterpiece, Shack Attack. There's a Shack Attack that's been floating around on Craigslist and eBay in Southern California for at least a year. And they think they can get $2,500 for it. Not going to happen. John Norris designed this game, very famous designer for Gottlieb. Over 3,000 of these are built. 3,300 is the number I see. 3,380 maybe. Currently ranked number 231st on the Pinside Top 100, 200, 300. And so here's the deal with Shack Attack. Shack Attack, it's a basketball theme. So continuing my bashing of sports themes doesn't play to the masses very well, because not only is it a basketball theme, it's a specific player theme, and you may have a lot of polarizing viewpoints on said specific player, Shaquille O'Neal. The lower playfield, you have all these little, like, basketball players, like, down around the flippers, and then you have this giant, like, you know, Jolly Green Giant size Shaquille O'Neal just towering above them. Not a real attractive playfield. The backglass is actually worse. I laughed. I read somebody's review of the game that said it looks like Shaq has... No, he actually said it looks like Shaqzilla has Tootsie Rolls for legs on the backglass. And I said, really? And I looked at the backglass, and indeed, it does kind of look like Tootsie Rolls. Bad art. Kind of a bad theme. The music's not good. Terrible voice callouts. Does not add up to a good experience. The main toy on this game, there's a basket, because this is basketball we're talking about, that actually moves, and you have a ramp where you shoot this ramp and try and get the ball to go into the basket hoop while the basket is in front of the ramp. It's actually not the worst toy ever, and when you do hit it, it's pretty satisfying. It's an interesting little thing, if nothing else, little toy. There's a separate scoreboard down in the playfield for the basket shots that each player gets, all 4 players. Now, that's assuming you can find 3 other people who actually want to play this game with you. I kid, Shack Attack, I kid. So yeah, it's a tough theme. Not a good flow game. Not a lot to love here. Maybe if you're a big Shaq fan, or maybe if you are Shaq, you love this game, or you're dating Shaq, maybe, or you're his kid. Somebody's got to love this, right? Moving into March of 1995, and the year was 1995. So March. First Williams release here, the first Williams Corporation release. And it's an interesting one. It's based off a movie from 1971. They went way back, 24 years earlier. But a classic movie. That movie's Dirty Harry. Now, I got called out on this a few weeks ago because we played Dirty Harry, because there's one on location here locally, and I said that the voice acting was horrible renditions of fake Clint Eastwood, and I was immediately emailed by 2 or 3 different people saying, no dude, that is Clint Eastwood. And I'm like, oh well, Clint Eastwood was not feeling very Clint Eastwood the day that he did these recordings for Dirty Harry, the pinball machine. They made over 4,000 of these games, 4,248. It's a Barry Orsler design. I love Barry Orsler. This is currently ranked just inside the top 100 on Pinside. Number 98. Dirty Harry, number 98. This game's funny because it's based on a movie from the early 70s. And so you've got this artwork on this game. The first thing you look at is the artwork. And it's sort of done with these 1970s color schemes. I always feel like there's orange and purple on this game. And I'd actually have to go look at a photo to even tell you if there is orange and purple. But those are the colors that jump into my mind. There's a lot of Dirty Harry drawings of Clint Eastwood. A lot of drawings of Clint's face or likeness all over this game. Like, I feel like there's 5 or 6 pictures, maybe more than that, of Dirty Harry. That'd be a great trivia question, is how many Dirty Harry drawings are there on the playfield of the game Dirty Harry? It's almost silly. But when you think about it, like, what else are you going to do? Like, the theme is Dirty Harry. It's a movie that a lot of people probably weren't that familiar with 24 years later. I mean, I just know it because I was kind of a film buff for a while. I went back and saw it, and I don't know. I think it's a pretty good game. I think it's a game that doesn't get talked about a whole lot. I think it's a hard game. And I would imagine a lot of people have been pretty frustrated with this game. There's some tough ramp shots on here. This game, if you read lots of reviews about the games, and I try and do that before I talk about them, because I want to see sort of what everybody thinks about them. One of the things that comes up a lot with Dirty Harry is you need to make sure the game is well taken care of. Your flippers need to be dialed in properly. You need to have a clean play field. This game needs to be in good shape to play right, to hit those ramps properly. A lot of people say it's very tough to do well with the wizard mode, or to even get to the wizard mode. I think it's challenging. So this game has a Midnight Madness mode. And if you don't know what a Midnight Madness mode, there's a handful of games that if you're playing the game and the clock in the game is set properly and you hit midnight, if the time gets to midnight while you're playing, the game will literally shut down on you. and I didn't believe this when I first heard this. Somebody was telling me this a couple years ago, and I didn't even believe it. They're telling me about this on Johnny Mnemonic. The game will shut down on you and start a whole new mode, like Midnight Madness. And in Dirty Harry, they call it Midnight Rampage. And it becomes like a multi-ball mode where you get lots of points. And then when you lose all that, I believe you go right back into your game. Correct me if I'm wrong. You do on some of them. And it's just sort of a weird thing. Now, you can fake this by changing the clock setting in the game so that maybe your Midnight Madness mode clicks on at like 7 o'clock in the evening when you're actually playing a lot. Because I don't know how many of you play your game at midnight. Maybe everybody does. But there's other games with these Midnight Madness modes. Congo famously has one. Whodunit, I believe. Like I said, Johnny Mnemonic. And I think Theater of Magic also does. So, Dirty Harry. It's kind of an adult, grown-up theme. There's not a lot funny going on with it. He has his little like sideways, like supposed to be funny remarks, but really you're dealing with like crime and revenge in this. So you got a safe house and warehouse, like molded toys that are sort of like the skyline of the game. Pretty neat. I think it's fun. I would like to spend more time on Dirty Harry. It's a game that I think probably gets forgotten about just because it's not a super sexy theme or a fun theme. Sort of, I think it's an odd choice for them to do a game based on Dirty Harry in this time frame for Williams. Because you look at the other things they were doing around this time period, lots of original themes. And I don't know, it just seems a little bit odd. I think it's quite different. Yeah, I don't know. Tell me what you think about Dirty Harry. It's a game I didn't really know existed till a year or so. Later on in March, because that was a March release, Gottlieb released another game. So they had Shack Attack in February. And now they release Stargate. Stargate, if you don't know, is the highest rated Gottlieb DMD game ever. And it also is their only DMD game in the top 100. It's actually the highest Gottlieb game in the top 100. I think the others that are up there are Haunted House and Black Hole, which are early 80s solid-state games. So Stargate is very well reviewed. If you look at a Stargate sort of draws you in because it has this great back glass with this mirrored multi-level back glass with lights in it, and it has the pyramid, and I don't know all the technical sci-fi geeky talk stuff that goes on with this game, and there's a lot of it. And I remember reading the rule set to Stargate one time and just kind of like giving up because of all these crazy names. But it's got a lot of toys. And I've read multiple people say this when arguing for Stargate on the forums, that if this was released today, it would not be a limited edition. It would be super limited edition if it had all these toys. They put a lot into this one. You got to give Gottlieb credit here. They went all out. They must have spent a lot of money building Stargate. I don't have a build count on this. I don't know how many they made on this one. Totally don't know that. But I will say the playing in this game is interesting, because to me it feels sort of like a Twilight Zone feel of sorts, in that some of the shots are easy to get to and some of the shots you have to hit with the upper flipper over to the left side. The skill shot's interesting because it is actually a skill shot where you can get some great prizes for getting it. I think you can get right to multi-ball off of the skill shot, and or maybe a 2-part skill shot there. But one of the criticisms of Stargate is like it's all multi-ball all the time. Like there's tons of 2-ball multi-balls, hit a jackpot, get a 3rd ball, and it's really easy to get multi-ball going on this. There's a really deep rule set. There's lots going on. You have a bunch of modes and a bunch of combos available to you. There's a million different ways to kind of go about getting through this game. Some of them are very risky ways, and in reading the rules that have been written for this and kind of the walkthroughs written for Stargate, you'll see that the reviewer will often say, I would avoid this, I would avoid this, I would avoid this, because if you're just trying to rack up big points for maybe tournament play. But there's a lot going on. Obviously, you got this really cool pyramid toy in the back, and you will get sick of hearing the call out, shoot the pyramid over and over and over. That will drive you nuts. But there is some great stuff. There's like a lot of detail in this game. There's like on the pop bumpers, there's little alien creatures molded on top of each pop bumper. That's pretty cool. You didn't see a lot of that. They were doing some interesting stuff. You can actually get into a switch test mode just as a player on this game by holding flippers down. and it'll actually there's a way to get in there, and it'll tell you like what the shots are all going to do for you and worth, which is pretty interesting. They were sort of giving the player some access to some of that. You'll also notice they used gold for the wireforms and the ramps on this, so it looks just very, very different. I would call this sort of a stop-and-go machine. This isn't a flow machine at all. It's really a game where you need to think about what you're doing, and it has those interesting two-stage Gottlieb flippers where you can really cradle the ball at some cool angles and get stuff done. Very cool game. I think this is probably a great game in a home collection. I know that the guys on the Game Room Junkies podcast, I heard. See, here's my danger at this, because I went back and listened like all their old episodes, so I might be talking about something that happened a long time ago. But to me, in my virtual world, listening out of order, that's why I don't like listening to things out of order. But I did it with these guys. I want to say that Patrick bought Preston Stargate, or vice versa, and I can see why they would kind of keep this game in the home, sort of between them, because it's a game that I've only played on location out in the wild. The Pinball Hall of Fame, I think, is where I've mainly played it, and maybe Pinball Wizard in New Hampshire. A lot going on, though. Very cool. It's dark. It's mysterious. It's sci-fi, and if you're a big sci-fi geek and you can't afford some of the the Star Trek games, this would be a great option. I think a lot of people, if you compared this to the Daddy Star Wars game, would probably pick the Gottlieb Stargate over that. So pretty interesting game, neat game, some good fun tough shots. Also in March, so March was busy. We had another Bally Williams game, and some words that I would use to describe this game would be classic, gorgeous, beautiful. And it was a very successful game designed by John Papaduke. It is the number 14 rated game on the Pinside Top 100, and that is Theater of Magic. Theater of Magic is one of those games that just sort of sums up how good pinball got in the 90s. First off, they were working with a very cool theme. I mean, we're talking about the theme basically is set. You're set in this old, shadowy, dark theater. And you've got this mysterious, beautiful, hot female magician who's in the theater and going to perform magic for you. She's going to turn herself into tigers and birds and pinballs, and it's very cool. You've got toys. You've got a trunk toy with a magnet on it. You've got a trap door. There's some really great stuff on this game. You've got outer, orbits, inner loops that sort of loop into each other. It's a great, great game. They made 6,600 of these, and that's almost... it's sad. I wish there was even more of them. The artwork is beautiful. The colors pop. It's got reds and purples and golds. I just... absolutely, I love this game. There's just some neat little detail things in this game, sort of promoting the magic ideas. Some of the things are done with magnets, or it moves the ball from ramp to ramp. One of the cool little, tiny things about this game that I think really sums up how awesome they made this game and integrated the magic, mysterious theme into it. The rollovers in the back right of the game, when you hit the orbit and get up into the rollovers, you can't see them, but they put a little mirror on the back of the in the back of the playfield, where you can look at your ball going through the mirror, and it's upside down, so it feels backwards and feels magical. It's just cool. The call-outs are awesome. The voice acting is just cool and creepy and sort of mysterious. I don't like the call-out where the woman magician says, "You have the magic." I want to strangle her when she says that, for real. I don't like the plunge on this game, the actual opening shot. You hit it up into the wireforms, and it sort of just drops down into it. That's the one clunky thing on this game that I don't like. I think it's harder than people say it is. I hear people oftentimes say, "Oh, Theater Magic, just hit the trunk over and over." And I guess you probably can exploit the scoring system doing that on this game. I've never owned it. I've only played it out in the wild, so I haven't spent hours on end doing it. But there's actually a lot to this game. It's just such a great balance of an awesome theme, fun shots, because you can really get moving. This game plays quick. You get these inner loops going. I think they did a good job also telling you what you should be shooting at. When you hit the trunk and you start the different magic magic tricks, I guess. You know what you're going for to kind of work through those, and you can also spell. Do you spell theater or do you spell magic? See, I'm not looking at the playfield, so there's some ways to progress through the game. It's cool. It's a lot of fun. Theater magic's just awesome. So that to me is, that's up there and one of the all-time greats, and rightfully so. It's rated number 14 on the Pinside top 100. So so there's our first part of 1995. I think it's an interesting year, and you can see there's a lot of cool stuff going on in 1995. We will finish 1995 in the next episode, I promise. Somebody asked me, and I don't know if they were joking or if they were serious or they just don't know me well enough yet, but somebody requested that I do 1975. I got that in an email, and it's going to take a little work on my part because I don't know those games that well, and I would have to definitely do some digging and some research. But maybe I'll jump back and go to do the Wayback thing. It might be fun. Maybe for Christmas you'll get that. Maybe on episode 52 or something. Anyway, we gotta get to this mailbag. Let's check some of this email.
Check the email.
Sometimes when I do this segment, I print out the emails that I'm going to use for the segment and write little notes on the paper, so I'm sort of organized. But I think tonight I'm actually just going to literally open up Coast2Coast Pinball at gmail.com and go from the bottom where I haven't archived these emails, which tells me I haven't read them yet, and just kind of read through some of them, more interactive. So if you hate this sort of thing, hey, we're all done. See you next episode. If not, follow along. So this email's from a guy named Brian, who wrote me. Really nice email. He wrote, love the podcast. I think you're really getting this right. Short shows, better than 2-hour marathons. I actually love the 2-hour marathons. So I know I do a shorter show, but I love when I just downloaded the new Spooky Pinball last night, and I can't wait till I have, a nice block of an hour and a half or 2 hours to really listen to it. I love that stuff. So he says he left me a nice iTunes review. So he's my best friend right now. Thank you. I appreciate that. That's awesome. That helps us track higher when people search for pinball. He says, my last episode got me thinking, which this was a couple weeks ago, so I'm not sure which episode that was. He says, pinball's been very cyclical over the last 30 years or so. Take the late 70s. Pinball was huge. The invention of solid state machines. Then arcade games became the big thing. Pinball takes a back seat. Then the game industry crashes and pinball rides out the storm until the late 80s. The DMD era comes in, picks things back up. Who knows what would have happened if Pinball 2000 had gotten a fair shake? I agree. Who knows? Maybe it could have started another boom. I think that's possible. I actually do think that's possible. Although I think the rise of the, super home games, where when we got beyond first gen PlayStations and Xboxes, when we got into PlayStation 2s and Xbox 360s, and I think once you got into that, it was going to hurt pinball for a little bit anyway, because you've taken all the focus off going out to play games. But I think it's coming back. So now he says we're at a time where pinball is no longer fighting the home consoles because home console innovation has stalled. Exactly what I was just saying. If anything, home consoles, mobile devices are pulling people into the pinball hobby with the pinball arcade. I've talked about that on the show. It actually kind of blows my mind. I feel like I stand corrected on that. I think that it is pulling people in. He's right there. And then we have the new technology, like Wizard of Oz type games, could change its course. So he thinks maybe we're moving into a new era, and I agree with that. He says that his point here is the market for pinball and the conditions are right for a boom. Heck, Bally Williams could make money recreating old tables and selling them for half the price of some of the most sought-after A-list games. Just think, Attack from Mars reissue. There's plenty of people who will not spend $10K for a 20-year-old one, but no doubt spend $5K for a brand new reissued game. Thanks for help keeping pinball alive. Well, I think you're overstating it. I don't know that I'm actually help keeping pinball alive. I might be help keeping some pinball fans awake. But thank you, Brian. That's flattering as all can be. I think about the reissued thing all the time. I would love, it's Williams is still sort of there. There, some version of Williams is still there making slot machines. Wouldn't it be cool if, somehow, it's just not that easy. We all know it's not, but I would love to see a reissue game, even if a company like Stern or Jersey Jack bought the rights to build these, and every other year did a classic reissue, or every 18 months reissued something, and you just go top down, reissue Medieval Madness, which I believe somebody else owns the rights to that now. Reissue Attack from Mars, reissue Twilight Zone. People would buy those. It would work. I think it would be cool. Collectors would buy them. When you start talking about reissues versus new ideas, if you could like pull some of the kind of the themes that didn't do well in the last few years and stick in one of those reissues, I mean, hindsight's always 20/20. But even a game like Iron Man, which sort of has this kind of regrowth of a following afterwards, didn't really hit back then, even with this big movie. I know Gary Stern thinks that these movies and these TV things and comic book characters are really the way to, push and sell a game. I don't know. I think maybe some classic history in pinball might help too. So anyway, Brian, sorry it took me a while to get your email there, but I do really appreciate it. Steve wrote me, and he was telling me that Paragon, I think I referred to Paragon as an EM game in a podcast, which it's not. It is a solid state. I should know better than that. I think I'd already corrected myself on the website. John emailed. I think I read one of John. Oh, John invited. I did talk about John's email. He invited me to play as Gorgar, which I couldn't do. My buddy Kane here in San Diego emailed, and he was gonna go to Mesa Bowl to play some Dirty Harry and Attack from Mars. Very cool. Also was gonna head up to Nickel City. We're gonna do a trip report to Nickel City next weekend, I think, to play Wizard of Oz. And he was asking if I know of anywhere that has a Theater of Magic. It's like he's talking about all these games we're talking about here. I don't know if there's a Theater of Magic in San Diego. I think there was. I'd have to go back on the pin finders. Download, Kane, if you're listening to this podcast, download Pin Finder Pro for your smartphone. It's a cool little pinball finding application. And then also if you just Google Pinball Maps San Diego, I think that's usually the most well-kept list of what games are where in San Diego. So check that out. That's a good one. Kane and I are going to have to meet up sometime and play some pinball since he's local to me here in San Diego. Nick wrote me and said, I wanted to shoot you a quick email. Thank you for the podcast. I listened to all of the podcasts. He's very much grown to enjoy ours. Thanks for doing so regularly. Bloody great. Oh, he's from Melbourne, Australia. I love it. That makes me happy. Somebody from the other side of the world. That's kind of what this thing's all about. So thank you, Nick. I really appreciate you writing me. Thanks, man. David wrote me some thoughts on show 20. He agrees the Silver Ball Museum is awesome. When he went, he was not spoiled by flippers yet. David lives down on I think, the Carolina-Virginia border, because he was the one telling me about flippers, I believe, Virginia Beach area. And so he played mostly the DMDs and stayed away from the boring, quote, old EMs, which he then said was a mistake. He, too, had an EM appreciation revelation recently. Say that a bunch of times. EM appreciation revelation. A few weeks ago when he was at Papa. And after I spent the first day just gawking at the sheer volume of games, I started playing a lot. I mean a lot, he says. Most games I had never played before, so I really took time to not play games I could play anytime at Flippers. I do that, too. If there's a game that I have locally, I won't play it when I'm out somewhere else. I do that all the time. But then it kills me because sometimes that game locally will go away off route. And that Monsters Bash that we have here at the Mira Mesa Bowl, I know that's not going to be there forever, so I need to go play that more. Basically saying there isn't really a pinball machine he doesn't like. Old EMs are fun, just in a different way. He likes the old artwork. I agree completely. I love some of the artwork. Orbiter 1, concave plexiglass playfield. Ball rolls around behind the flippers. Look it up. Very, very weird and cool. I've seen that game before. It is very cool. Another game that he found a new appreciation for was a dreaded Data East title, Star Trek, with the transfer to backglass. Yeah, I like that game. That game plays pretty quick. I like Data East Star Trek a lot. Definitely. So very cool. Anyway, David, thank you for the email. I appreciate it. He and we're going to end up playing at Flippers one of these days. I'm going to get out there and I'm going to have him take me. He did send some very cool photographs, so he got some awesome photos. And I think he actually sent me a picture of the game Derby Day, which did I talk about Derby Day? No, Derby Day is just reminding me of the other one that I talked about. Derby Day has racehorses in the back glass, so very cool. We're on Stitcher Radio. I just saw this in my email, so I'm bringing it up right now in the checking the email. If you're a Stitcher Radio guy and you're on your iPhone and that's how you like to get your podcast, we're there now. We're on Stitcher Radio, so I'm not sure if I'd mentioned that last episode or not. Mark wrote me and he said he can't. He said, Nate, I bet you love it when your listeners can't wait to run to their computers to email you about something you said wrong on the podcast. LOL. And then, Mark and about 3 other people emailed me this. He basically points out to me that, I must not be familiar with Peter Pan, which would be correct. I'm not super familiar with Peter Pan. And that Peter Pan had a whole thing for crowing like a rooster. And Teresa thought I was nuts that I didn't know this, because she heard the podcast too and was like, dude, that's not the pirate's parrot. That is Peter Pan crowing like a rooster. He does that. He's famous for that. I don't know why. Whatever. So Peter Pan, I guess, crows like a rooster. There's a song in the Broadway musical titled I Got a Crow, but he won't bore me with that. So anyway, then he says, thanks for pumping out the shows, Mark. He's in California also. So anyway, I stand corrected. The annoying bird crowing sound in Hook is indeed Peter Pan crowing like a rooster. So go Peter Pan. So we're kind of up on it. I've got way more emails to get through, but this show's over. It's done. I gotta go bed. No more Coast to Coast Pinball tonight. But 23 will be here. Don't worry, episode 23 is just over the hill. We'll continue 1995. We'll go through some more mail. Hopefully, Stern will release Star Trek tomorrow, and I'll have something to talk about, right? Could happen. So anyway, thank you very much for listening. If you would be so kind as to leave an iTunes review, that would be fantastic. Follow me on Twitter at C2C Pinball, C2C Pinball. Our website is coast2coastpinball.com. You can find us there. And there's a Facebook page, and you can email me at coast2coastpinball@gmail.com. Coast, the number 2, coast, pinball @gmail.com. Thanks for listening. We will talk to you soon.
Magic.